Can you travel to South Africa and Victoria Falls for 16 days for about $3,500 per person without skimping on nice hotels, tours, and food? It's possible, and with only a minimal amount of pain, because no holiday is completely painless. The trip totaled 16 days out of Atlanta, Georgia, and had a 10-hour layover in Istanbul, Turkey, each way. And thanks to Turkish Airlines Tour Istanbul, get it? Tourist Istanbul, Tour Istanbul. We were able to see the sights in Istanbul with plenty of time for rest. You can see that short video here. First, let's get started with who went on the trip. This is Tay. He takes a lot of selfies. So many selfies, and these are just the ones he posted. And this is me, with all the selfies that I took. When I planned this trip, there were a few realistic rules that I set. Number 1, aim to spend only $100 a day on hotels and food, which is actually fairly easy for most of the trip. Number 2, fit as much in as possible. That's what she said. And number 3, use credit card points wherever I can. We're going to skip the flights. It was economy, and even with choosing seats for 3 of the 4 flights, it only cost me $1,106. Flying sucks. If you can afford to fly first class, then you wouldn't be watching this video. After landing in Cape Town, we got Muffin, a 2023 Toyota Agya for $359 for 8 days. Muffin isn't fast or large or particularly good in any other way other than the 49 miles per gallon rating really saves money. Day 3 was a rest day. Get to the hotel, catch a nap, get some food, and prepare for the next day. We used the hop-on, hop-off bus tour to see the city. It's the perfect way to see the city for $38 without worrying about parking. Our first stop was Kirstenbosch National Botanical Gardens with the Boomslang Bridge. This whole park offers fantastic views of Table Mountain and other botanical stuff. Then on to Camps Bay, which offered some fantastic wave-on-rock action. Then on to the VA waterfront for the Two Oceans Aquarium, where you can watch the penguins eat, or be still, or have no idea what they're doing. Finally, included in our bus pass was the cable car up to Table Mountain. We timed this so we'd catch the sunset, and it could have gone horribly wrong with the clouds pouring over the mountain and the fog taking over the top. But everything came together and gave us some awesome imagery and some amazing views while rotating up and down on the cable car. The Castle of Good Hope is not actually on the Cape, but it is on the way, so we knocked out a quick Dutch history lesson and got back on the road.
It looks like a city, a Dutch city.
I love a good drive, even in a crap car, and Chapman's Peak is a fantastic drive. Pay your $3 toll and get ready to see some views. Try to drive without crashing or rubbernecking too much. If you're driving, you do miss a bit of the view as you go along, but there's plenty of places to pull over and take photos. Then on to see the penguins. This was crowded and smelled like penguin, but we got to see the penguins, and they did not put on much of a show at all. Now on to the Cape of Good Hope. It's pretty cool, but $21 a person cool? I don't know. It was a good hike. The restaurant at the top was great and affordable, but similar views can be seen all over the coast. It's an hour round trip plus the hike to the lighthouse. You can maximize your time by doing other things, honestly. It would have been cool to have time to stop in Muizenberg Beach, but this was the longest drive day. We had to make it to Arniston, near the southernmost point of Africa, for the hotel that night. How can you not go to the very tip of Africa?
It's alright.
We backtracked to Gqeberha, where Google told us that the southern tip was at another place. Cool, there were good views there too, but better views from the lighthouse. Pay the $4.50 to go to the top, then go to the actual southern tip where they have a bronze map of Africa and a lovely sign showing the imaginary line that separates the Indian and Pacific Oceans. Then go see something that's not imaginary.
So this is the Kobayashi Maru. Actually, it's the Marishi Maru? Something Maru.
The Misho Maru shipwreck. There's shipwrecks all over the place, but this one is 5 minutes down the road from the southern tip and is pretty accessible. Then on to Mosul Bay to stay at the Diaz Resort, which was surprisingly upscale for how cheap it was.
This is my type of time at the beach. The sun is behind all the hotels.
It was right on the beach. You get to watch the sunset, frolic in the sand, eat at the hotel restaurant, which we did a lot, by the way. The food was so affordable that even hotel restaurants fit within the $35 per day food budget. After a pretty cool sunrise, move on to Plettenburg Bay, which has a ton of stuff to do. We really could have used 2 days here. Along the way, we went to the Robert Nature Reserve and hiked over to the Point Trail, seeing the seal colony along the way, and then over to the beach trail. We were then on to Tsitsikamma National Park for the Mouth Trail. Half of the V-shaped suspension bridge was closed for maintenance, but the important part across the span was open, and the views were spectacular. We took the rest of the day slowly at the whaling station B&B that oddly enough didn't include the second B word, but the view was pretty amazing. The next 2 days were all about animals. We visited Monkeyland, where we saw plenty of lemurs, some capuchins, and thousands of mosquitoes. Birds of Eden, where surprisingly none of the birds pooped on us. And Joha Wildlife Sanctuary, where our tour guide had some strong feelings about the jerk zebras. On a whim, we decided to go to the nearby elephant sanctuary, and for about $40 we were able to feed, pet, and learn quite a bit about 5 rescued elephants in the park. On to Port Elizabeth, or Gqeberha, as the name was recently changed. Gqeberha doesn't have much going on, but we were here for 2 reasons. We were using this as a pickup point to visit Addo Elephant Park, and it was a good place to fly to Johannesburg. We had pickup from our hotel to Addo Elephant Park by Addo Game Drives. Our tour guide was persistent in getting us good looks at the animals and worked with other guides to find out the best spots for viewing. We saw 4 of the 5 lions in the park, with the females guarding their day-old kill, and one of the males that walked right across the road like we were barely there. Of course, the stars of the show were the elephants, and we were treated to several close-up views of the elephants, along with jackals, zebras, warthogs, so many warthogs, and more. The tour took a whole day and included a barbecue lunch that was really fantastic. Gqeberha does have a park dedicated to Nelson Mandela called Route 67, but it's not well maintained, and we didn't feel very safe there. So we only saw a fraction of the 67 art installations on display and booked it to the airport a little early. Then on to Johannesburg, where it felt like the hop-on hop-off bus there was basically showing the richest and the poorest parts of the city. Honestly, it was a weird bus tour, but we wanted to knock out some coasters at Gold Reef City, and after that, we're pretty much spent for the day. We probably didn't give Johannesburg a fair chance, but we didn't plan much time there in the first place because we were on to Zimbabwe. Day 12 was essentially a travel day. Once we got in, we tried to book some tours for that day, but it made sense to do them all the following day. Hotels in Victoria Falls or Livingstone in Zambia can be expensive. We stayed at the N1, which I equated to the modest beach hotel, and it was about $75 a night, versus other hotels in the $100 to $500 per night range. Day 13 started with an early morning trip to the falls. The park had just raised the entry from $30 to $50 per entry, so we were careful not to go in multiple times. We did the Zimbabwe side, where you can see 75% of the falls, and the bridge that crosses over Zambia. For lunch, we went to the Lookout restaurant, which had an amazing lookout, hence the name, and followed up with more food on a sunset cruise on the Zambezi River, where we saw some hippos, and they didn't try to kill us. at least not very hard. The remaining days were travel days, back to Cape Town, then back to Istanbul, then back to Atlanta. Was it the perfect trip? Absolutely not. If I planned this again, I would have skipped Johannesburg and spent less time in Gqeberha, which might have saved some money on the in-country flights and allowed a side trip to Namibia, which was one of my original goals. No trip can ever be perfect, but with enough research and a good idea of what to do, a South African trip is a fairly reasonable vacation, especially when you maximize your credit card points.